Among the many challenges that international students face when they relocate to their host countries is the challenge of trying to fit in different aspects. For instance, language. Language, it's a very paramount, it's a very important aspect that each and every scholar has to put in mind when they choose the host countries that they're going to study. Imagine yourself going to study in a country that does not, that only speaks in English, but the country that you're coming from or your country of birth, you do not communicate in English. It's very, very common to see such kind of scenarios. Or you're coming from an English speaking country and then you're going to study to a country that speaks Chinese or Japanese or German. You'll have a very big challenge to fit in, especially if you do not have any prior practice or knowledge in the host country's language. Now, this is a very major challenge, and it really affects international students when they try to fit in, to feel like they are fully prepared for the programs that they are planning to take in that host country. And a good example is when students try to go and showcase their talent, their expertise to employers. It becomes very hard to communicate, and so you find that for these students, they will have to really work really hard to understand the language that the host country requires for them to take the classes that they're going to study, and also for them to be able to communicate to the host people that they're going to find. Because now there's another issue, there's another challenge of culture, and it's another big challenge. But I think that language really plays a big part. And especially if you are not able to communicate, then you might end up missing very important or very prime opportunities that comes along with the program that you're taking. And so it's very good for international students to understand that if you do not come from a country that speaks the same language as your host country, then it is your own personal responsibility to make sure that you can be able to express yourself, to make sure that you can be able to communicate in that language. It doesn't mean that you have to communicate the same way the host communicate, like, with the same accent or because we do come from countries that speak more than two languages. Like for my country, we speak more than 50 languages. And there are even countries that they have more than 100 languages. And you find that even though I come from a country that speaks English as their national language, my English is still affected by my local dialect, and therefore there is no way I'll be able to communicate with the same accent as an American. So and it's the high time for international students to understand that just because you cannot communicate in the host language accent, that should not limit you from getting the opportunities that the host candidates that are getting. And employers do not know you, and they rely on how you express yourself. They rely on how you express yourself and how you articulate yourself. How well can you explain some of the projects that you've been working on? And if you're not able to say that, or if you're not able to sell yourself to the employer, then you'll end up missing opportunities that they were really meant for you. So one thing that I find international students, or one mistake I find international students making, it's when they land, for example, when they land to their host countries, they try to find people who speak like them, people who communicate like them. For example, let me use a case like, for instance, Kenyans. When we come to a school, maybe to a certain state, we start looking for other Kenyans that we can be able to communicate comfortably with them. If it's maybe Indians, the same thing. They will come and they will look for people who speak like them. And there's no any problem with finding people who maybe you can relate in one way or the other. But when it comes like to positioning yourself, in the job market, then you really need also to find friends who will help you to better your communication skills. There are so many ways that you can navigate how to communicate, but there are also online courses that you can take to better your communication, because I've really I came to realize how important it is to have the vocal confidence when you're talking to an employer, because one thing, this employer doesn't know you. Another thing, you do not speak like them. Another thing, you do not come from the from the host country. So, so many odds are against you. So it depends on how well do you communicate, how well can you articulate yourself. And to articulate yourself, it doesn't mean that you have to speak in an American accent. It doesn't mean that you have to speak very good Chinese or very good German or very good Japanese or whichever language. That means how confident are you able to articulate yourself? How well can you explain your expertise to that employer? And it's high time for for foreign students or international students to master this, to understand this very crucial aspect. Because if you do not, you'll be done. At the end of your 2-year a course, or maybe 4-year course, you'll be done with that diploma or that degree, and then you'll be subjected to the job market, but you cannot express yourself. And another big mistake that international students make is that they are not willing to get out of their comfort zone. This I mean, for instance, when I was in school, I had a chance to work in the career center, and I used to see, or we used to organize so many, employer showcase events, career fairs, and connection points or meetings, whereby maybe one organization can organize an event and then invite students to go and see how professionals or listen to some stories or connect with people who are already in the field that they are studying. And in those connection events, that's when you will build your communication. That's how you build your vocal confidence, because it plays a big role when it comes to job application, when it comes to interviews. You have to position yourself in a manner, or you have to package yourself in a manner that an employer will say, even though this person does not speak like I am speaking, this person has something in them, and they will be confident enough to give you a chance to showcase your skills. So if you're an international student, wherever you are, whether you're in the United States, whether you're in Europe, whether you're in Asia, in Australia, please just know this. It is very important for you to know how to package yourself when it comes to communication. And there are so many materials online that you can use to build your confidence when you're speaking. And one big thing that really that was really affecting me before was like being in a group of Americans, and they're speaking in their in American English, and I'm there struggling with my British diluted English, if that's for lack of a better word, because I come from a British I come from a country that was colonized by the British, and so therefore we speak would say British English, but the accent is totally different. You can tell even by the way I'm talking. It's different. Why? Because I speak more than 3 languages. I can communicate in more than 3 languages, and therefore I did not grow up practicing the American accent, and therefore finding myself in a group of like 5-10 Americans, and they are these guys speak first. They speak with confidence. Another thing, they speak loud in the sense like you can hear what they are saying. And I come from this culture whereby we do not communicate like that. And so when you're in that circle, you feel like you're you being sidelined, but in fact, you're not being sidelined. You're not just flowing with the conversation. Why? Because you do not have the vocal confidence, the confidence in yourself to articulate yourself, to express yourself, to accept when they ask you to, to repeat again, because they also won't understand. Just the way that you are not understanding when they say some of the things is the same thing that you will not. They will not understand you when you communicate with your, with your foreign dialect. So it is very good to accept that. Accept that, it's a journey of making mistakes, learning from that mistake, building your confidence, and packaging yourself for your next role after your graduate or undergraduate program. So I felt like that is very important for international students to know and to have in mind, and just, communication plays a very big part when it comes to, finding a job, doing interviews, because it's the how you convince an employer that will determine how best are you. How and sometimes you might not even have the right skills that the employers are looking for. You might not have the exact skill set they're looking for, but the way you articulate yourself, the way you've packaged yourself in terms of communicate, selling yourself, and means a lot to these employers. So I would encourage all international students to really take up the challenge. Accept that it's not it's not an offense to be told to repeat something more than once. It's not an offense to not communicate in the same dialect or the same accent that your host country or is communicating with. Accept that, and from there strategize on how best can you be able to articulate yourself. Once you master that, then you'll be very do not have challenges fitting in a culture that you are not raised in. And another challenge is like the cultural thing. The whole spectrum of like, for instance, in the United States, there are so many cultures. People come from different, all walks of life, and people have different personalities. People are raised in different ways. There are people who believes in different types of things, and therefore accept that you will find difficulties, trying to integrate in the culture that the host country that you're in, but the big thing is to understand, first accept that, this is not my culture. But as far as it's not my culture, I'm supposed to integrate with it and be able to navigate how to survive in it. And by doing that, then you will be at a better place to, survive in your host country. So that's it for tonight and for today. Let's talk. Let's see you in the next episode.